Hello everyone, welcome back to Unveiling Mythical Legends. Today, the topic we are going to explore is one of the most controversial war gods in both Greek and Roman mythology, Ares and Mars. These two deities are not only the embodiments of war, but also symbols of chaos and destruction. Ares, the bloodthirsty and wild war god. Why does his immense power and merciless blade make him so despised by the other Olympian gods? And how did Mars, originally the god of spring, transform into the Roman god of war, governing the fate of the nation and its armies? Let's unveil these mysteries and delve deeper into their stories and symbolic meanings. In this storm of war, we'll feel the shock of courage and violence intertwined. Remember, before we begin the video, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on more exciting content. Ares, the war god in Greek mythology, is a very unique figure in the pantheon of Mount Olympus, known for his extremely bloodthirsty and wild image. The son of Zeus and Hera, he was born with immense strength and talent, but this did not grant him a stable position among the gods of Olympus. In fact, his personality and behavior set him apart from the other deities. His mother, Hera, a fiercely powerful goddess, had a profound influence on him. She shaped Ares into an emotional and fearless warrior. From a young age, Ares was instilled with a deep love for war and conflict, which led him to find excitement and pleasure in the chaos, slaughter, and even destruction that came with it. As a result, Ares' image became increasingly associated with violence, war, and chaos in the minds of the people. Compared to other gods of Olympus, Ares seems to have no understanding of how to establish harmonious relationships with either humans or deities. Both Zeus and Hera despise his violent actions. In many mythological stories, Ares is often depicted as a god of war who lacks compassion, completely immersed in his fanaticism for battle. He not only revels in rushing into the battlefield, but he also destroys everything without hesitation for his own enjoyment of combat. Ares does not just love war. He sees conflict itself as an art, with an inexplicable passion for the noise, chaos, and slaughter that come with it. His obsession makes him appear in ancient Greek poetry and epics as a ruthless, unstoppable warrior. For Ares, the battlefield is not just a place to display strength, but a unique stage where he thrives, treating every battle as an opportunity to express himself. His very existence seems designed to show the world the true nature of war. With each clash, with every swing of his sword, he feels endless pleasure and excitement. In the poet's words, Ares is like a whirlwind, ruthlessly tearing through the formations of armies. Whether facing brave warriors or cowardly soldiers, he strikes them down with devastating power, leaving no one spared. The scene resembles a disaster with no respite, where both heroes and cowards alike are doomed to destruction. His chariot is an unstoppable weapon, effortlessly breaking through enemy lines, shattering chariots, armor, helmets, and other gear. In the face of his immense strength, all weapons and defenses appear utterly fragile. Every destruction witnessed on the battlefield seems to showcase Ares' infinite reverence and passion for war. His power is not for protection, but to incite more chaos and slaughter. The devastation he brings is filled with intense fear, whether it be for soldiers or the world itself. The end of each battle is an irreversible catastrophe, leaving only the wreckage of the land and broken armor. These fragments stand as witnesses to the terrifying power he commands. But it is precisely for this reason that people also began to understand that war is not merely about fighting and winning or losing. It is the uncontrollable chaos and violence within the human heart. For Ares, every act of slaughter on the battlefield, every fallen figure, is the ultimate expression he seeks, the way he gives meaning to war. Although Ares is portrayed as an incredibly powerful god of war in many myths, he is not invincible. In fact, in numerous stories, His sister Athena, the goddess of wisdom and strategy, is often on the opposing side. The relationship between Athena and Ares is full of conflict and opposition, as she represents another side of war, justice, reason, and tactics. Meanwhile, Ares is a god who seeks pure power and chaos, recklessly spilling blood and fire on the battlefield. During the Trojan War, Athena frequently sided with those who defended peace and order, helping the heroes who fought for justice. Her opposition to Ares became a clear and significant contrast in the war. One of the most famous scenes occurs when Athena aids the Trojan hero Diomedes. In this battle, with Athena's help, Diomedes successfully challenges and injures Ares. When Ares is knocked down and retreats in pain, his humiliation and defeat undeniably show that he is not invincible. This moment not only highlights Athena's wisdom and strategy, but also shows us that Ares' embodiment of ruthlessness and chaos is not unbeatable. Among the gods of Mount Olympus, Ares' image is highly controversial, especially since, aside from his lover Aphrodite, almost all the gods harbor a strong dislike for him. This is not due to a lack of strength or ability. On the contrary, Ares possesses incredible combat prowess and great physical strength, but his obsession with destruction and war makes him stand out as an outcast among the gods. For most of the deities, Ares' actions are not just ruthless, but seem to subvert and challenge the order that Zeus has established, which often leaves him feeling isolated on Mount Olympus. Ares' behavior follows this pattern. He not only loves war but also enjoys challenging the peace and order that Zeus has put in place. He sees conflict and chaos as the essence of life, which is in stark contrast to Zeus' obsession with maintaining harmony and order in the universe. Zeus, in mythology, has always symbolized strength and wisdom, and the order he established maintained the balance of Mount Olympus, while Ares' actions are undoubtedly a direct challenge to this order. As a result, Zeus' attitude toward Ares is filled with indifference and hatred. This is especially evident when Ares, after being injured, goes to Zeus to seek comfort. When Ares is wounded on the battlefield and goes to Zeus for solace, Zeus openly expresses his dissatisfaction. "Do not come to me. You are the god I hate the most." This statement not only reflects Zeus' disdain for Ares, but also reveals his deep hatred for the violence and chaos that Ares represents. For Zeus, Ares' actions are a direct challenge to his rule and an outright disregard for order and peace, which makes it impossible for Zeus to feel any sympathy for the god of war. Ares' emotions and actions are filled with contradictions and complexities. The god of war, whose life revolves around battle and destruction, sometimes exhibits intense emotional fluctuations. One of the most famous incidents involves him personally killing his own son, Harmonia's son, because of his actions. The incident occurred after Harmonia's son insulted Ares' daughter, Alcippe, which triggered Ares' immense rage. Without considering their father-son bond, Ares violently resolved the conflict. However, this bloody clash between father and son did not end there. Harmonia's death enraged Poseidon, the sea god, who considered such actions intolerable. As a result, Poseidon took Ares to the court of Mount Olympus for trial. During the trial, Ares was ultimately acquitted, not only legalizing his actions in a way, but also giving birth to the name Ares Hill. This hill later became a famous court in ancient Athens. This event deeply highlights Ares' unique position among the gods of Mount Olympus. Despite being a deity, even a god of war, he too could be caught in moral and legal debates, facing potential punishment or trial. However, even with that, Ares' image is not invincible. Though he is the ruler of countless battlefields, he doesn't always emerge unscathed. In other war stories, Ares was once subdued by two giants, the brothers of Olympus. These two giants were incredibly powerful. They captured Ares and imprisoned him for a full 13 months. This event is also a part of Ares' image, proving that even the god of war is not all-powerful and can indeed be captured. These stories demonstrate that Ares is not an invincible figure. Despite his immense strength, he too faces challenges and limitations, adding more depth to his myth. In Greek mythology, Ares is often depicted as a tall, young man with a muscular build, as though every inch of his skin is filled with strength. His body exudes a primal sense of power, whether standing in the center of the battlefield or driving his chariot. His solid physique and piercing gaze strike fear into those who see him. Whether it is the sharp blade he holds in his right hand, the point of his spear, or the round shield he carries in his left hand, each weapon symbolizes ruthless combat and destruction. These battle implements enhance his image, as though he is always ready to obliterate anyone or anything that stands in his way. However, Ares' power is not solely based on his appearance and weapons. He is always surrounded by a group of terrifying deities and monsters. These entities act as his shadows, further enhancing his terrifying image. The most famous among them is the Erinyes, goddesses of war cries. Their voices are like horns on the battlefield, igniting the warrior's desire for battle and making the chaos and bloodshed of war even more rampant. Cadmus is the demon of battle noise, and whenever he appears, the noise on the battlefield becomes unbearable. The clashing of metal, the warrior's roars, all these sounds create a cacophony that seems to plunge the entire battlefield into a hellish state of confusion. But perhaps the most terrifying of all is Ares' twin sister, Eris. She is the embodiment of strife and chaos, never leaving Ares' side, always accompanying him to the bloody battlefield. Eris' image is even more fearsome, dressed in tattered clothes with snakes entwined in her hair. She appears as the living embodiment of chaos. She wields a burning torch and a sharp dagger, her face twisted in a grotesque snarl, always bearing an anger that seems impossible to quell. Whenever she appears, the surrounding atmosphere seems to be warped by her relentless power, and every life on the battlefield becomes fragile and vulnerable. Her burning torch lights the path to a terrifying future, while her dagger and snakes are weapons in her war against chaos. Mars is the god of war in Roman mythology, and his image bears striking similarities to that of Ares, though with distinct cultural differences in details and background. In early Roman culture, Mars was originally a god of spring, symbolizing the victory over winter and the prosperity of agriculture, closely tied to the early Italian tribes. For these tribes, agriculture was vital, and the arrival of spring meant the beginning of the planting and harvest seasons, which made Mars the protector of this process. He represented the renewal of the land, the abundance of crops, and the warmth and vitality of spring. However, with the rise of Rome, Mars' image underwent a significant transformation. He was no longer just the guardian of agriculture, but gradually became a war god with a strong martial nature. And eventually, he held a very important position in Roman mythology, second only to Jupiter, the supreme god of Rome. This shift reflected the character of Roman society. Warfare and conquest were integral parts of Roman culture, and Mars' image thus became more powerful and aggressive. As the god of war, Mars' majesty and ruthless nature made him the protector of the Roman army, and his image embodied courage, strength, and the will to fight. The Romans regarded him as their guardian, believing him to be the force that defended Rome, even considering him one of the founders of the city. According to legend, Mars was the father of Romulus and Remus, the twin brothers who were the legendary founders of Rome. This connection firmly tied him to the origin and destiny of the Roman state, making him a symbol of Roman strength and resilience. Similar to Ares, Mars is often depicted as a tall, strong warrior, holding a spear or sword and wearing armor, always ready to enter the battlefield. His bravery and warrior spirit are deeply ingrained in the hearts of the Romans and became a symbol of their fearless conquest of the world. Like Ares, Mars also has special connections with various deities, the most famous of which is his relationship with the goddess Bellona. Bellona is the goddess of war, often by Mars' side, serving as his companion and fighting alongside him in battles. It is important to note that, although Mars is famous for war and strength, his role in Roman culture is not limited to that alone. He still maintains a profound connection with agriculture and is seen as a symbol of national and societal prosperity. Roman military conquests, the establishment of a state, and agricultural productivity were all considered manifestations of Mars' power. Thus, Mars is not only the god of war, but also the guardian of the nation's prosperity. The Romans' worship and rituals for Mars were very unique, reflecting their high respect and dependence on this war god. Every year in March, the Romans held the grand festival of Mars, which was not only a commemoration of the god of war, but also a special moment to ask for his protection. During this time, the military would conduct training at the famous Campus Martius, Field of Mars, which became an important site for army assemblies and reviews. These training sessions and ceremonies were not only displays of military readiness, but also acts of devout worship toward Mars, aimed at receiving the god's blessings and protection. During the Festival of Mars, the Romans offered various sacrifices to express the highest respect and gratitude to the gods. The scale of the rituals was grand, and the atmosphere was sacred, with both soldiers and citizens participating together. In order to ensure the success of Rome's military campaigns, everyone would respectfully carry out the sacrifices. These rituals symbolize the trust and reliance on the power of the god of war, and they prayed to Mars to protect Rome from the calamities of war. Additionally, it is important to note that during significant wars, Roman soldiers would pray to Mars for protection, and in order to gain the god's favor, they sometimes performed sacrifices in extremely brutal ways. One of the most controversial practices was the use of live human sacrifices, especially on the eve of battle, when Romans would select prisoners of war or other captured enemies as offerings, hoping to secure the god's favor and victory in battle. Although these sacrificial practices were highly violent and cruel, they were viewed as a sign of the utmost respect for the gods in the cultural context of the time. People believed that only through the most extreme means could they show their devotion to the gods, and such actions also reflected the ancient Romans' immense desire for victory and glory. It is worth mentioning that Mars had a close association with a goddess named Bellona. Bellona was the goddess of war, and her image was filled with violence, fury, and destruction, often appearing alongside Mars on the battlefield. Her presence made the image of the god of war even more terrifying and intimidating. Bellona was often depicted as wearing armor, holding a spear and a whip, driving a chariot toward the front lines, fearlessly eliminating any enemy in her path. She represented the extreme violence and reckless destructive power of war. Whether on the battlefield or in mythology, her role was one of complete devastation. The appearance of Bellona brought the brutality and destructive nature of war to its fullest extent. Together with Mars, their combined presence made war an immense and undeniable force. In ancient Roman religious rituals, Bellona also held a significant place. She was not only Mars' companion, but also the embodiment of war itself. Her appearance reminded people that war was not merely a military confrontation. It brought about complete destruction and death. Bellona's image and actions symbolized an all-consuming violence. Every time she charged into battle, it was a reinforcement and intensification of the relentless power of Mars, the god of war. In Roman religious rituals, Bellona often became the central figure of sacrifices and ceremonies. Alongside Mars, she provided the Romans with immense fighting strength and protection, while her intimidating presence made all enemies feel the cruelty and ruthlessness of war. This duo of deities not only ensured that the Roman army was unstoppable in battle, but also deeply engraved their legacy in the hearts of the people, making Bellona and Mars eternal symbols of war and victory. When we look back at the figures of Ares and Mars in ancient mythology, it is clear how deeply their presence impacted the nature of war and chaos. Whether it was Ares' wild and untamed character in Greek mythology or Mars' nobility and grandeur in Roman mythology, their images shaped the unique identity of the war god, leaving a lasting imprint on history and culture. These deities were not only powerful and unignorable beings. Their stories also reflect humanity's profound understanding and interpretation of war, courage, and strength. In Greek mythology, Ares is the embodiment of pure war and violence. Every time he appears, it is a push toward chaos and destruction. His image is often wild and intense, representing a war without reason, only blood and fire. Ares' existence reminds people that war brings not only conquest and victory, but also endless destruction and suffering. Every charge he makes on the battlefield highlights the aesthetics of violence, making one feel the uncontrollable desire for war. In contrast, Mars' image in Rome is more noble and protective. He was seen as the guardian of Rome, symbolizing not only boundless fighting strength, but also the protection of the Roman state and its people. Although he was also a god of war like Ares, Mars is more multifaceted. His image includes the protector of agriculture, the symbol of national prosperity, and the embodiment of military power. Mars' existence reminds people that war is not only about violence and destruction, but can also serve as a force for maintaining order and ensuring national security. The stories and images of these two war gods deeply reflect humanity's dual understanding of war, both as an unrelenting force of destruction and as a source of protection and power. Their tales are not only legendary hero stories in mythology, but also profound interpretations of war, courage, strength, and honor in human culture. Ares and Mars not only shaped the image of the god of war, but also, through their stories, showcased how humanity perceives the brutality and necessity of war, courage, and sacrifice, as well as the profound meaning of power and order. Thank you all for joining us in this deep dive into the stories of Ares and Mars, the gods of war. Their images and legends remind us that behind war lies endless pain and struggle, and it also prompts us to ask, what is the true meaning of courage? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below to let us know your thoughts on these deities. Do you think Ares' violence can be justified? Or can Mars balance power and order in war? We look forward to your responses and hope to see you again in our next episode.